Thank you for stopping by. My name is Tom. This is my amigo Pinko. How's everybody doing today? Hey, see, always happy. Thank you. So, in this video, I am going to give another example using pictures of finding the slope of an inverse. And we will work with a concrete function that looks like this. I will just make it up here. Y equals 2x plus 1. So this is a linear function. It's x to the first. Okay, as a reminder, though we don't write it when it's written in this form, what is implied is that there's a little positive 1 on the x as the exponent. Okay, so it's 2 times x to the first plus 1. Okay, let's graph this. And to graph this, we will use the concept of slope and y-intercept. So first, let's draw a careful coordinate system. I've got grid paper, so I can draw really nice straight lines. That's our y-axis. This is the x-axis. There we are. This is our coordinate system. Let's mark points on it so we can label them clearly. And I will take, for the sake of visibility, 3 spaces to be a single, to be a 1. So it's very easily read. Likewise on the vertical here. Okay, there we are. So we have this setup that looks like this. And now we're going to graph 2x to the first plus 1. So whenever you look at a function under the 2, you have to remember there's also an invisible 1. Slope consists of 2 numbers, a run and a rise. Sometimes the rise is a full, sometimes the run is left or right, but it's 2 numbers, as I have shown you here. Now that we have this in place, we're going to graph this. So let's begin by looking at the y-intercept, and then we will go 1 to the right. So this is our y-intercept of positive 1. Then we go 1 to the right. Okay, like that. Then we will turn here, and then we will go up by 2. So 1 and 2. And then, of course, we don't have to stop here, so we can once again go 1 to the right, and another 2 straight up. 1, 2. Okay, so we've built up a little staircase. With this in place, let's connect those points with a straight line. That looks like this. There you go. So this is our curve. Okay? It's helpful if you mark things. That's your 2, and the blue is the 1. That's your 2, and the blue is the 1. Okay, so you see the slope of this line is 2 over 1. Doesn't matter where you are on the line. It's horizontal, it's a line, so its slope is the same no matter where you are. If we are seeing the picture from this perspective, then the x-axis represents the independent variable, and the y-axis the dependent variable. The slope is 2 over 1. Okay. So you multiply every x by 2, and then you add 1 to it, okay? The way I've shown you here. Now we will look at the inverse. And to look at the inverse, all you have to do is just literally take the page and just turn it so you're looking at it from this perspective here, and immediately you can tell that the slope of this function now is, as before, the vertical divided by the horizontal, but that is now 1 over 2. 1 over 2. Now we are treating this axis as the independent variable, and we are treating that one as the dependent variable. Okay? And when you look at the picture this way, you see that the curve has been shifted by 1 to the right, and the slope is 1 over 2. So when you look at it from that perspective, I'm going to turn the page back. You can write down the equation of the inverse as y to the negative first, meaning y inverse. It doesn't actually mean y to the negative first, right? We just write it that way, but it represents the inverse function. That is simply equal to, as we saw, you switch the slope. It's 1 over 2 now. Like that. Okay? That's the slope of y inverse. 1 over 2. Okay, so let me mark that here. That's the slope. Okay? So the slope of y inverse is 1 over 2. And once again, how do we find it? Just by looking at a carefully drawn picture. You don't have to feel unsure of yourself. There's nothing mystical or magical about this concept. Right? This is the original setup. The slope is 2 over 1. When you look at it by turning the sheet, now we are looking at the inverse. That slope is 1 over 2. It's that simple. So once again, as before, you can also observe that the slope of the inverse and the slope of the inverse, right, let's say y inverse is the same as 1 over the slope of y. Okay? That's it. That is the whole setup. In the next video, we will talk about looking at the slope at a point and reading this curve 2 ways, and you will see, once again, if you rely on pictures for intuition, a carefully drawn picture will reveal more to you than all the symbolic manipulations in the world. Okay, definitely label the space, the numbers on the axis here. This is y equals 1, y equals 2, y equals 3, y equals 4, y equals 5. There you go. So thank you for watching, and have an absolutely amazing day. Don't forget to smile.